Just talk to us in the here and now, Sandra, what you are telling your clients, how worried they need to be.
Well, what we're telling them is that they need to be prepared, but not to panic. The fact of the matter is that Russian cyber aggression has been going on for many years. And a lot of the preparations that organizations are making for ransomware and other attacks that are the same preparations that we're asking them to make today.
Any industry groups that are more vulnerable than others, or indeed that you feel could be under greater threat than others?
Well, the risk of reciprocal action against or cyber action against U.S. businesses, the risk of that does go up with the application of sanctions. And when we're looking at reciprocity, a lot of the sanctions are based on financial effects. We might expect to see some action against the financial sector, but it wouldn't be just limited to the financial sector if it were to happen. And that's because cyber attacks can create effects across all industries. And that is really what I believe the Russian aggression is about. It's about creating fear, doubt, uncertainty, and that's going to be very powerful if they can actually get that done.
Fear, doubt, uncertainty was certainly increased in Ukraine amid, well, not one, but two cyber attacks, which seem to be more DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks, an inability to communicate, particularly with their front lines. But I'm interested in what types of attacks you might see in the Ukraine, but also perhaps closer to home. Is it that sort of attack, or is it more ransomware that we need to fear?
Well, what we should be thinking about is what is the effect that the Russian government would be trying to get. So they could use a very low sophistication technique like a DDoS attack. But what is accompanying with that are things like text messages. We saw this in Ukraine, text messages going out to banking customers, telling them that the banks were down, that they wouldn't be able to get their money. That is an effect that's really cognitive, it's psychological. I think that what we're going to be seeing from that Russian playbook is a psychological attachment to any of the cyber actions that they're taking, trying to drive down the resolve of the people. The application of sanctions and their effectiveness is really driven by the willingness of the people to support them. And if Russia can get their target population, whether it's in Ukraine or elsewhere, to start doubting their government, to weaken their resolve, then they will have achieved the effect that they're looking for.
Okay, so give us as a consumer, but also the clients that you speak to, a sort of quick 101 of what we should be looking for, how we should be acting in this current environment.
Well, really what we need to be doing is looking for anomalies in our networks. We should already be practicing cyber hygiene. Run that playbook. If you know that you're going to be taking actions, separating networks or segmenting them, who's responsible for that? Is your general counsel part of your tabletop exercises? If not, they should be. And a lot of this will also require a connection to your PR or media relations team, because if you are a target of significance, there certainly is going to be a lot of messaging around that. In fact, you can expect things like defacements or a narrative come out that could be completely fabricated. So really what organizations need to be doing is to prepare in the way that they would be preparing for any ransomware attack or any type of other breach of their network, get the playbook in place, and then remediate and press on, because our resilience is very important here. It's essential not to panic. Companies get breached every day, and they do continue once the remediation is complete.
We, of course, talk a lot about defense, but we've started for, I feel like, the first time to hear from potentially the administration and talk about offense when it comes to cyber, well, attack to a certain degree. What do you think could be deployed to be able to, take it back upon Russia in some way?
Well, the U.S. military, of course, has every option available to them, and it doesn't need to be a cyber response. In fact, if military action were to come, there would be quite a few different options. But one thing to remember here is there are multiple instruments of national power. If the United States decides that it's going to go on offense, it can go on offense in many ways, diplomatically, economically, even within the breadth of military tools. There are low-level, things that can be done, all the way to some of the more sophisticated attacks that could happen. But really, it's not about the mode and mean of it. What it is, it's about the effect. What effect do you want to reach, and how is the most efficient application that you can put out there to gain that effect?
And quickly, Sandra, the people, the places these attacks are coming from, is it becoming easier and easier to identify very quickly? Because that seemed to have been what the case was, to ensure that we knew that these were coming from Russia, even if it wasn't exactly from the government itself.
Well, we do know quite a bit about the Russian threat, cyber threat apparatus. Over the several years that they have been conducting attacks, not only the governments, but also commercial companies like my own have enumerated a lot of their capabilities. And so we know quite a bit about them. They've been operating in safe harbor in Russia or in adjacent areas for quite a number of years. So a lot is known about them. The thing that gets tricky is that it is they've been operating in an area where we have thus far not had jurisdiction or a lot of options in order to stop the activity.